So we are on Ayin Bava and base, 7 lines from the bottom. Amar Papa, Hi man the Mazman leishtar lechabre. Continuing with a topic that we've been discussing till now, someone who sold a shtar, a note, means a piece of paper that indicates that money is owed, and it's a third party is selling it. It says Reuben owes money to Shimon, and Levi is selling it or giving it to Yehuda. Tzarech lemichtav le kanilach hu b'chol shibud debei. He has to, in addition to doing a masira, to handing it over, or mashicha, he has to also write a shtar to indicate that he's giving it over. So this is the machlekes that we had on Amud Aleph between Rebbe and the Chachamim. That Rebbe said it's kind of with just masira. The Chacham say bein kasav le'masa, bein masa le'kasav le'kana. This is going like the Chachamim, that it's not sufficient to just do a masira. You have to do a masira together with a shtar. Amar Avashi. So that's the psak of Rav Papa. Amar Avashi. Amrisa l'shmaisa kameder of kahana. Avashi said, I asked this very question. Does a giving over, when someone wants to convey a shtar, a note, to another person, does it require a shtar in addition to a masira? And Amrele taima the kasale hachi. I'm sorry. Yeah, he said, and Rav Kahana said, taima the kasale hachi, like kasale hachi like knai. I'm sorry, I skipped. No. So you have to write this. You have to also write a ksav. So he confirmed that he has to actually write. He has to provide the shtar, where he writes this lashon, that everything that's been conveyed in this shtar, I want to convey over. It's not just a masira, you also need a shtar. So Rav Ashi asked Rav Kahana, time of the kasav lehachi, the kasav lehachi loy, like kni, so I'm sorry, I read wrong. And I said to him, time of the kasav lehachi, like kasav lehachi loy kni, I asked Rav Ashi, this doesn't make any sense. What are you telling me? You're saying that if he handed it over to him, then it's not kind of. What was the person's intention when he was Moiser or Shtar? When Levi handed over to Yehuda, he said, "Pay me $100 for this note that says that Reuven owes Shimon $150. That you'll be able to then collect it from Shimon. You're getting a little bit of a discount because who knows if Shimon's going to be able to pay it. But you're paying $100. Did he pay $100 just for a piece of paper to use to stuff the top of a bottle? It doesn't make sense. If he's paying that much money, it's indicating that he intends to buy the actual lien. He wants to buy the actual amount that's indicated in the shtar, not just to buy the piece of paper. Amali, no, in lots of. No, he says, Rav Kahana said back to him, no, unless he writes a shtar, all he's buying is the actual piece of paper. Let's see the Rashbam on the bottom of the Yom. But Amli in lots of Lutzer. No, yes, mishtus. Are you going to say he paid $100 for a piece of paper that's worth 50 cents? So it's like, no, heavy betel mekach. He's saying the taina is not that it should be a kinyan. For $100 he gets the piece of paper. Rather, he's saying it should be a betel mekach. You paid $100. You thought you were getting, you were buying the note, on what the note represents, but really all you bought was a piece of paper. And obviously, it's not what you wanted. So we're going to cancel out. We're going to say it was a mekach tois. It was a illegitimate transaction. It was never what the purchaser intended. Amar Ameimer said, "Hilchasa oisius niknas m'sira." He said the halacha is not like Rav Papa just paskin. That he paskin like the Chachamim, that a oisius, which means a shtar, which means a chayiv, a note, that Rav Papa said it has to be nikna together with a shtar. He says, no, it's kind of with just a Masira alone, just by handing over. Rebbe, like Rebbe, who argued on the Chacham. Amalei Ravashi la Meimar, Ravashi asked Meimar, Gemara Oisvar. Ravashi was the antagonist to Rav Papa, to Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana had paskined like the Chacham, and Ravashi was not happy with that. Now Ravashi is saying to Meimar, where do you know he's happy with Meimar? Meimar paskined the way that he was asking Rav Kahana. So Ravashi is Tzufriden that Meimar is paskening what he thinks is the correct way, like Rabbi. He says, Gemara Yisvara. Where do you know this from? Do you know this because you heard this from your Rebbeim, that's your Messiah, or Svara? Or do you have a theory, a hypothesis to support this? Amalei Gemara. He said to him, I heard it from my Rebbe. Amar Ravashi. Ravashi says, Svara Nami. I also have a Svara that will support the idea that the way the Rashbam says it, that Oisius Aniknas ben Masira. So I just want to, before we get into what the Svara is, I just want to point out that this is all the Rashbam. If you see the Rashbam, the top Rashbam starts Hochi Garsinan. Amar me Oisius Aniknas ben Masira Karebi. That is the Rashbam's version. And he says, Gemara, the Maskana Bahab Makaimis to Oisius Niknas Masira. We see many times in the Gemara Paskins that you can buy a note, you can buy a star just by handing it over. You don't need a star at all. However, the Re in the Taisus, Amar Amei Mechasa Oisius Niknas Masira, Ulari Nira, L'Rabbeinu Tam Ulari, just a line down. We could skip the first line of that Taisus. Near the Garis, Ein Oisius Niknas Masira, Karabana. They pass the other way around. They pass like the Rabbanan, not like Rebbe. So they have a different gears of the Gemara. That's why the Rashbam says Hachi Garsinan, because he knows that there are other Rishonim that have a different gears. So now the Gemara is going to bring it. So if it's a Gemara, then it's fine, and then that's the Messiah. And Ravashi says it's a Svara Nami. It's also a Svara. Back to the Gemara. Ravashi. Ravashi Svar Namihu, the Oisius Milininu, Oisius, a star. Now, this is the way the Rashbam would say. A star is mere words. Umili b'mili lo miknin. So, a person who wants to buy a note, the note doesn't represent anything. It itself has no value or no real value. It's just the value to stuff it on top of a bottle. But its value is only what it represents. And you can't have something that is mere words, or like we said, has no inherent value, that it should be able to be given over with something else that is of no value, meaning with a star. The star will not be Milo Moirid. The Rashbam Svara is, you have to have something of substance to cause a kinyan to take place. So either you need that the thing that's being conveyed is of substance. So then you could do it with a star that has no substance. But to take one star, a note, and convey it over to someone else with a second star, you can't do that. You can't have a star. It's too theoretical. You have to have something that's grounded in this world. So let's quickly see. Let's see the Rashbam, where he speaks this out. Milininu, dvarim hu moicher, b'lay mammon. When someone is selling a note, what he's selling is just mere words. He's just selling, he's conveying a right to collect money, but not v'loy mammon mamash. He's not handing over an asset, not handing over a piece of karka. He's not handing over a vase. Therefore, you need that it actually should be handed over physically. But a second star to convey over the first star won't work. The mili b'mili lo miknu star lo yikna b'star. One star cannot be cunny with another star, and he doesn't mean to say, no one ever really suggests that it should be cunny with just a star. But his point is that the star is not going to be milo moired. It's not going to change. It's not going to change the equation at all. So therefore, that's the reason why there's no need to even make a star, because it's not going to change. The Taisvis had the exact opposite. He said we're paskening that you do need a star. So he says, if you see the Taisvis Divrei Maskal, Isis Milin or Mili Bemila Nikni, Baimari, the Messiah Star Kari Mili. He's saying that giving over the star is just me. The Kamalei Knilach Star Zeh, the Hanmil Be'alma. Avash Kaiser Star Bishmay Ala Shibet, Elcha Maisik Dailamizu. But riding the star that formalizes the Kinyan, he has the exact opposite svar of the Rashbam. He paskins the opposite of the Rashbam. He's paskening like the Chachamim, according to Taisus, and therefore his svar is exact opposite. That Mesira is not a mili. The Rashbam was saying a star is mili. I'm sorry, Mesira is just mili. They're just saying hand over something, but you're not actually doing anything. You're saying take the reins, pick up this piece, but nothing is happening. But when you ride a star, that's formalizing the Kinyan, and that's enough. That's what you need in order to make the Kinyan take place. So it's very interesting that the Rishonim come out because of the different girsus, that the same line in the Gemara is saying the exact precise opposite svara. Practical Gemara v'loy. Is this true that mili is not nikne b'mili? You can't convey words with something else that's also only words. Amar Rabba bar Yitzchak, Amar Rav, Shnei shtaros. There are two shtaros that we discuss. The first two we're going to discuss, but they're not really relevant to what we're saying now. The first is Zachu Besada Zu Leplini. If an aid, if Reuven says to two aidim, he says to Shimon and Levi, I want you to be zeicha in this property for Yehuda, and you should make a kinyan sudar. So there's two parts. He said, go take this sudar, pick up this handkerchief to be kind of this sudar on behalf of Yehuda. The kisvulay is a star, and in addition, I also want you to write a star so that Yehuda will always have a piece of paper to prove that he owns this karka. Chayze b'shtar. If Reuben changes his mind, he gets into a fight with Yehuda, and he says, you know what, I regret that I ever decided to give this karka and to give a star, proving that he gets it. He could say, you haven't yet written the star. I don't want you to write the star. But once they made the kinyan sudar, then the karka already belongs to Yehuda, and there's no way Shimon and Levi can go back on the kinyan that they already made. It's a zachan adam shalei. They were zeich on his behalf, even though they also agreed to make the star. But until they made the star, you cannot make a star against the will of the person who's asking to make the star. But on the other hand, if Reuven said, rather than saying, I want you to be kind of this karka with the kinyan sudar, and them doing that, and then him saying, I also want you to write a star, he said, I want you to be kind of with the kinyan sudar, but he made it contingent on the writing of a star. So that, in
the first case, chayzer b'shtar, if he can't be chayzer b'sada, what's the point of being chayzer in the star? What is, practically speaking, what is he gaining here?
What do they say is, what the Mefarshim say is that a person doesn't really like to have a star that's publicizing that he has given away some of his karka. It makes him appear less wealthy. So he thought about it and he said, I don't really want the star out there saying, listen, Yehuda it's bad enough that he has my karka. I don't need everybody to know that I'm not a man of means. So, this like, I understand what you're asking. There's no difference as far as this particular karka. It seems like he's just trying to be sneaky, that he's going to then go and say that it's really my karka. But there are edim.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I was wondering what does he gain? But now,
it would sound like he's trying to wait. Maybe the edim will move away or they'll die, and then he'll say it was my karka. But I guess if the other person was already on it for 3 years, he's not going to be able to make a taina. But his kosher taina is, I don't want to star out on my showing that I'm making a koil that I gave away something. But if he makes it, but then the Gemara says the second type of star is if he amanasha tichtavu is a star chayze bein b'shtar bein b'sada. At that point, even though he already made the kinyan sudar and they haven't yet written the star, and then he says, you know what, I don't want you to write the star. So it's up to the noisin the person who's giving, to say whether he wants a star or not. And since he made the kinyan contingent on the existence of a star, and now he's been chayzer on the star, he can retroactively be mevatel the kinyan sudar. Rav Chia bar Avin Amar Rav Huna shloisha stars. Rav Chia bar Avin adds on another star. Trey Hadamar, and these two that we already said. Idach in kadam meicha v'kosav es star. If Reuven is selling, has in mind that he wants to sell something to Shimon, and he goes to the scribe and he says, "Write up a star for me." Now, one might think you're not allowed to write a star. It's not emes because in the meantime there's no deal between Reuven and Shimon. But the Gemara, the din is that Reuven can have a star written, even though there's no agreement to make a kinyan, because all he's doing is being mishabed himself. He's saying, "I'm giving away my karka." Person wants to mishabed himself, he has that option. So he had the Edom write the star. When the Gemara says like that, which we said, like we just said, there is such a concept that you can have the star written, even though the lekeach, who's the beneficiary of the star, is not there, because he's not losing anything, the lekeach, by having the star written. Then what happened was Shimon. So Reuven went to Shimon. He said, "Do you want to buy this karka?" And Shimon said yes. And Reuven still had that star sitting in his house in his safe. And Shimon said, "Okay, here's $100 for the karka, and I'm going to go be machzik in the karka. I'm going to make a kinyan in the karka." Nikna star b'chol makam shehu. At that point, Shimon is kind of the star in Reuven's safe. The Gemara understands at this point what it means to say is, even though this sounds very familiar to us, it sounds like a kinyan agav, the Gemara is not understanding this as a kinyan agav, but rather it's understanding this as a kinyan that because the makne wants to have this karka conveyed over to the kaina, therefore he also wants to convey over the star. And therefore it becomes, because of his mere wishing it to be so, the star now becomes the property of the kaina. So Gemara is saying, you see from here, that mili is mimsuri b'mili. This is not even mili. This is just our judging that this is what Reuven really wants. And since that's what Reuven wants, the star becomes koni to Shimon. So how can you tell me you can't sell something of words, you can't sell it, you can't give over star chayv with the way the Rashbam says it, with another thing that's just words. Over here was giving over a piece of paper, which is a star, with even less than words. He's not even saying that he wants to give it over. It just was saying we're judging, and that's when once he's giving the karka, he also wants to give the star that goes with the karka. So l'chayr it's a raya that mili is mimsuri b'mili. Sagt Gemara, no. Agav shiny. This is not talking about a kinyan of mili. This is talking about he's being makna the star along with the karka, which we know is a kinyan agav. We have it all throughout Shas. The hamatbeya delay nikni b'chlipin. Hamatbeya cannot be kani with a kinyan sudar. You can only be kind of karka. I think it's takanas chacham we had back in kedushin, but you can't be kind of kesef with chlipin. But agav aranik, but it can be kani together with karka. Rapapa, we had this Gemara back in, where was it? In Bava Kama. He was owed 12,000 zuz by a fellow in Beichuzai, Akninu Leiler of Shmuel Baracha. And he wanted Shmuel Baracha. Shmuel Baracha was going that way. And he said, "Could you please go pick up the 12,000 zuz?" Shmuel Baracha said, "I'm going to show up to that guy and say, give me the 12,000 zuz to be your shliach to bring it back to Rapapa. This guy is going to tell me, why should I give it to you? If something happens to it on the way, I'm going to still be responsible until it gets to its true owner." So therefore, Rishon Aracha said, you have to be makna Rapapa. You be makna the chayv to me, that which you're owed. And then when the guy gives it to me, he's totally free of it, so he'll be willing. And then I'll give it back to you. I'll be makna to you when I get home. So what did he do? So Akninu Neleiler of Shul Baracha Agav Asifa de Besa. So he used the kinyan agav to be makna this chayv, this mili, this note that Rav Papa was owed from this fellow in Bechazoi. He sold it. He was maknat him through the threshold of the house, a piece of karka, a small piece of karka. So I'll be maknat you this piece of karka together with the chay. He also nafak lapei atvach, and when he came, he went toward him all the way till Tvach to thank Rav Shmuel Baracha for taking care of this job and picking up his chayv. The Gemara continues. Am I interrupting anything now? I have a little bit of time? Okay. He said in the Gemara, when you're kind of a ship, you're not kind of the what was it, the sacks, and not the avodim, and not the antiki. My antiki, Arapapa, is good de begava. It's talking about the actual inventory, the cargo that's being stored in the ship. So the Mishnah. Machar es hakroin lemachas hapardes. If someone sells a wagon, it doesn't sell the donkeys that schlepp the mules that schlepp the wagon. Machas hapardes lemachas hakroin, and vice versa. Machar satzemet lemachar sabakar. If you sell a yoke, it doesn't go along with the oxen that are fitted in the yoke. Machar sabakar lemachar satzemet, and the other way around. If you sell a bakar, it doesn't come with the yoke. Yehuda Omer hadam ma'idin. Yehuda says no. You got to look at the amount of money that's given. That will tell us what's being sold. Kate said, if someone says, sell me your yoke for 200 zuz, everyone knows a yoke itself costs $5, and he's asking for $200. No, everyone knows it goes $200 for a yoke, so he must mean to have the oxen together with the yoke. The Chum say there's no raya from the damim. If he said I'm selling the yoke for 200, it means I'm selling the yoke. Tani Rav Tachlifa, Bar Marava, Kamei Ravavo, Machars Akrain Machars Apardas. We said if you sell the wagon, you also sell.
We didn't. The opposite.
The Bryce over there says Machars Akrain Machars Apardas. He had a Bryce that said that you do sell the wagon. You're also selling the donkeys or the mules. But our Mishnah said you're not mecher together. Amalei is Maya. So this Bryce incorrect. This Bryce that says that they are sold together. Amalei like to tag him masasicha, but like you shouldn't get rid of that Bryce. Tag him masnisecha badukamay. That which it said that the two are sold together. It's talking about where the guy is standing in front of a wagon that has the mules already, the donkeys hitched to it. So when he says I'm selling you the wagon, he means the together with the donkeys that are currently standing right in front of us. But if they're separate, then you don't have to go get them from the barn and say that they're part of the set. So if he sold a yoke, he didn't sell the oxen. If you're in a place that you call a yoke, that refers to the physical yoke that you put around the oxen's neck, and to a bakar, you call the oxen. Shita. So when he says, I sold you a yoke, that's all he sold. We're talking about a place where you say, I'm selling you a yoke, and everyone understands a yoke means with the oxen. Then certainly he meant to sell also the oxen. Normally, they're called two separate things, a yoke and an oxen. But however, there are those who will sometimes call, when they're talking about two oxen that are yoked together, you call them a yoke. And you mean really the oxen as well. Yehuda Savadam Maidin. So Rabbi Yehuda says, on that case, we look at how much money was paid, and that will tell us which interpretation. Is it the less likely interpretation, the less likely usage, that it means the yoke together with the oxen? If he gave $200, obviously that's not referring to just the yoke. He must have meant the oxen is over. The Chum say the dam is not a raya. According to the Rabbanan, that they're saying the dam is not a raya. But how could you say that the mashmayis is that the person gets the yoke and he doesn't get the oxen? He paid $200 and all he gets is a yoke. But we know there's a general rule that if you have a know of yeser al shtus, it's more than a sixth above the typical price, that it's a mekach tais. So why don't we say that the whole sale is canceled? If you'll say that hold, there's no such thing. We don't hold of bittul mekach of more than shtus. There was a Tana comment said that if you sell, I think, karka and eved and shtar, all these things, there's no oina on them. And Rabbi Yehuda added on a sefer Torah behemo margalis. All these things don't have oina, but a yoke should certainly have oina. No one argued about metaltalin. He said, and they said back to Rabbi Yehuda, no, the only things that we say there's no oina, and it doesn't include the sefer Torah behemo margalis. It's limited to just karka and eved and whatever the third thing was, I think a shtar. So what we were saying is, like the Rashbam said all the way at the beginning of the Mishnah, that the mekach is batal. Now, certainly the person doesn't intend to buy a yoke for 200 zuz. When did the Rabbanan say that there's such a thing that I know that there's I know and bittul mekach? If someone paid $7 for something that's worth $5, so that's more than a sixth. So you say the person was fooled. But if someone paid $200 for something that's worth $5, it's 20 times or 40 times the value. In that case, we'll say, obviously the person was trying to give him a matana, but he knows that he's going to be embarrassed to take a matana, so he gave a ridiculous amount, he gave a ridiculous price. But it's only when it's within the bounds of what a person could make a mistake, then we say bittul mekach. But more than that, then we say the makna is trying to give a matana. Okay, we'll stop over here. Let's continue tomorrow.